The apartment building in Texas, LA stood as a looming sentinel against the urban sprawl, its 15 stories stretching into the sky. Sarah had lived there for years, finding comfort in its bustling energy during the day. But on one fateful night, that sense of comfort would shatter, leaving her trapped in a sinister game of fear and uncertainty. With the approaching weekend, Sarah decided to host a sleepover for her closest friends. The anticipation filled her apartment with laughter and excitement, creating a jovial atmosphere that belied the impending darkness that would envelop them. As night settled over the city, the group gathered in Sarah's living room, the faint hum of traffic below a distant lullaby. They spent the evening sharing stories and watching movies, wrapped in blankets against the chilly air that sneaked through the windows. Laughter echoed, and shadows danced along the walls as the hours slipped away. But as the clock's hands approached midnight, a strange unease began to creep into the room. With a sudden hush, Sarah's friend Jenna turned her head towards the window. "Did you hear that?" The group fell silent, straining to listen over the soft drone of the city. There it was again, a faint tapping against the window pane. A sense of disquiet settled over them like a shroud as they exchanged uneasy glances. "It's probably just a tree branch," Mark said, trying to dispel the tension. But the tapping persisted, growing more insistent. Sarah's heart raced as she turned her gaze towards the window, dread pooling in her stomach. She rose from the couch, her friends following suit, drawn by a mixture of curiosity and fear. As Sarah approached the window, she saw a figure standing outside, illuminated by the dim streetlights. A shiver ran down her spine as she realized it was a man, a stranger. His face was obscured by the hood of his jacket, casting his features into shadow. "Who is that?" Emma whispered, her voice trembling. The stranger's gloved hand pressed against the glass, the tapping growing louder. A chill filled the room as their eyes locked onto his, a predatory grin spreading across his lips. It was a chilling smile that sent a wave of terror through Sarah's veins. With shaky hands, Sarah slowly backed away from the window. "We need to call the police," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. They retreated to the safety of the living room, clutching their phones tightly. As they dialed 911, the tapping continued, the sound punctuating their frantic conversation with an eerie rhythm. The dispatcher assured them that officers were on their way, urging them to lock the doors and stay put. Time seemed to stretch as they waited, the air heavy with tension. The stranger's tapping had transformed into a continuous rapping against the windows and walls, like the persistent heartbeat of an unseen menace. The apartment that had once felt like a sanctuary had become a cage, and the suffocating darkness outside seemed to seep in. Finally, the distant wail of sirens broke the silence, a welcome beacon of hope. The group rushed to the window, their relief short-lived as they realized the stranger was gone, leaving behind only the echoes of his presence. Police officers arrived, their flashlights cutting through the darkness as they searched the area. They took statements from Sarah and her friends, their expressions growing more serious with each detail. The officers assured them they would increase patrols in the building and advised them to stay vigilant. As the police left, a heavy weight settled over the apartment, the shadows seeming to stretch and contort in unsettling ways. The friends huddled together, unable to shake the feeling of being watched. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the curtains sent their hearts racing. Hours passed, but sleep remained elusive. They sat in the dimly lit room, sharing whispered speculations about the stranger's intentions. It was clear that the encounter had left them deeply shaken, their sense of security shattered by a single nightmarish intrusion. Morning light finally filtered through the windows, casting a pale glow over the room. With the arrival of dawn, the sense of dread began to recede, replaced by exhaustion and a simmering anger at the violation they had endured. Days turned into weeks, and life slowly resumed its routine. The memory of that chilling night lingered like a specter, a constant reminder of the darkness that could creep into even the most ordinary of settings. Sarah and her friends became more cautious, always looking over their shoulders, their laughter tinged with an edge of unease. The stranger was never found, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and an enduring fear. The apartment building that had once felt like home now held a sinister secret, a reminder that danger could lurk just outside the window, shrouded in shadows, waiting to strike. And so, the nights in the Texas LA apartment building remained a haunting symphony of distant sirens and whispered fears, a chilling testament to the unpredictability of the world beyond their doors. As the months rolled by, the events of that fateful night became a haunting memory for Sarah and her friends. The sleepover had left an indelible mark on their lives, forever altering their perception of safety. The once welcoming apartment building had transformed into a labyrinth of shadows and doubt. Sarah found herself second-guessing every noise, her nerves on edge even in the familiar comfort of her own home. The gentle creaking of the floorboards and the rustling of leaves against the windows became triggers for anxiety, each sound a reminder of the stranger's chilling presence. Her friends, too, struggled to regain their sense of normalcy. Jenna had taken to locking her windows and drawing her curtains, her cheerful demeanor replaced by an air of cautious reservation. Mark's once bold presence now carried an undercurrent of vulnerability, as if the walls had grown closer, and the world beyond had turned treacherous. One evening, as Sarah sat alone in her apartment, the distant sound of footsteps echoing in the hallway sent a shiver down her spine. Her heart raced, the memory of that tapping against the window flooding back in a wave of panic. She forced herself to breathe deeply, reminding herself that the past was behind her. But then, the footsteps grew closer, as if approaching her door. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she strained to listen, paralyzed by fear. The footsteps stopped abruptly, leaving a heavy silence in their wake. The seconds ticked by agonizingly slow, the tension in the room palpable. With a sudden burst of courage, Sarah rose from her seat, her movements deliberate but trembling. She approached the door cautiously, her fingers hovering over the doorknob. Should she open it and confront her fear, or remain hidden and let the fear consume her? Just as she was about to reach for the doorknob, a voice broke through the silence, sending a jolt of shock through her. "Sarah, it's me, Emma." Relief washed over her, followed by a wave of embarrassment as she unlocked and opened the door to reveal her roommate standing there, concern etched across her face. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to startle you," Emma said, her voice gentle. "I knocked, but you didn't answer, and I was worried." Sarah let out a shaky laugh, her body still tense from the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "It's okay. I've just been a bit jumpy lately." Emma's expression softened, and she stepped inside, wrapping her arms around Sarah in a reassuring embrace. "I know it's been tough for all of us, but we can't let fear control our lives." As the weeks went on, Sarah's friends rallied around her, offering their support and understanding. They attended therapy sessions together, sharing their fears and experiences, and finding solace in their shared strength. Slowly but surely, the grip of terror that had held them began to loosen, replaced by a newfound determination to reclaim their sense of security. One evening, as they gathered in Sarah's apartment for another sleepover, the atmosphere was different. The apartment was still dimly lit. The shadows still danced along the walls, but the air was no longer suffocating with fear. Laughter and conversation filled the room, a stark contrast to the silence that had once hung heavy. The sound of footsteps echoed in the hallway again, but this time they were accompanied by a knock on the door. The group exchanged glances, their hearts no longer racing with panic. Sarah rose from her seat, her steps steady as she approached the door. With a deep breath, she opened it to find a security officer standing there, a reassuring smile on their face. "We've increased patrols in the building," the officer said, "and we've been keeping an eye out for any suspicious activity." Sarah felt a weight lift off her shoulders, the gesture of protection offering a sense of comfort she had longed for. She thanked the officer and closed the door, returning to her friends with a newfound sense of ease. As the night continued, the group shared stories and laughter, the walls of the apartment echoing with the sounds of camaraderie. The shadows still clung to corners, but they no longer held the power to terrify. The events of that one chilling night had brought them to the brink of despair, but they had emerged stronger, their bonds forged in the crucible of fear. The sleepover that had once been a nightmare had transformed into a testament to resilience, friendship, and the capacity of the human spirit to conquer even the most unsettling of experiences. And so, the apartment building in Texas, LA stood once again as a beacon of familiarity, its walls housing not just shadows, but also the unyielding light of courage and hope.